Welcome to the 28th episode of the It's Been Said podcast. I'm your host, SAI Executive Director Lisa Remy, and joining me today as co-host is SAI Professional Learning Director Dr. Darin Schon. Each show is dedicated to conversations on leadership as we further SAI's mission to support, encourage, and develop Iowa's educational leaders and learners. I'm excited today to welcome Dr. Darin Haack, Assistant Superintendent at Ankeny Community School District. Welcome, Darin, and thank you for giving of your precious time to be on our podcast.
Well, thank you for having me.
Why don't you start by sharing a little bit about yourself, your role as Assistant Superintendent at Ankeny, and then what drew you to participate in the SAI Leadership Coaching Program?
Yeah, I've been in Ankeny for quite a while. I started in Ankeny as a teacher in the early 2000s and was a building administrator at Centennial High School when we opened that building, and have been at district office now for 5 or 6 years now. I have the opportunity to work with a lot of different aspects of our district. Primarily looking at operations, safety and security, technology. I also spend quite a bit of time working with our principals and working with our schools to make sure that they have what they need in order to provide a great opportunity every day for our students. So to be perfectly honest up front, I was drawn to this program because I had a colleague who was involved in the program who was saying some great things about it and asked if I would like to be a part of it. And I just couldn't say no. And I'm really glad that I started with this program and have continued.
Awesome. Thank you. So, Darin, what specific goals were you hoping to address through participating in the SAI Leadership Coaching Program?
I think there were two goals. For myself personally, I'm just always interested in finding ways to improve my practice, to improve my ability to be reflective on my practice. And this sounded like a great opportunity for that. And the second really is when I heard the SAI was piloting a coaching program, I was just really excited because I think it's a great opportunity for leaders to improve their practice. And the fact that it was coming through an organization like SAI that I have a lot of respect for and a lot of trust in, I thought it was a great opportunity.
So how has then the coaching experience shaped the way you approach your leadership responsibilities?
I really appreciate every couple of weeks the fact that I have an hour blocked off in my schedule that I will spend time being reflective. I will engage in a conversation that challenges me to think about how I'm leading, that challenges me to think about how I see the results, how I look at the data, and make sure that I am being as focused and present as I can be as I think about how to tackle the challenges. I really think that it has helped me think more as a coach as I work with the folks that I get to coach as part of my day in, day out work here. I just really think that it's helped me to be a more present and focused leader.
Darin, I have a quick follow-up there. You talk about that personal growth that you gain, the insight that you get from having that reflective processing partner, and then you talk about becoming more coach-like. Can you talk about that a bit more?
I have had some coaching training in my background, especially when I was a building administrator. And so a lot of the language is very familiar as you go through these sessions. But what I realized is how easy it is to switch from being a coach to either directing, right, or consulting in a lot of the conversations that I find myself involved in. And so this process has helped me again, reflect a little bit more and think about how I can ask more questions, how I can seek better to understand prior to jumping into a more consulting role or even being directive. I just think it's changed the way that I approach those conversations.
Yeah, great. Thank you. I think that's interesting. There's a recent article from Harvard Business Review. I'm working with it in our Mentoring Matters. And one of the things it speaks to, it's focused on the 6 leadership skills we need at this current point in our time. And one of them is that tapping into curiosity and asking more questions, that leaders of the 20th century were question answerers, and leaders of our time need to be question askers. So I appreciate that has surfaced as part of the overall experience.
Yeah, and I appreciate the research to back that up. That's great. Thank you.
You knew you could expect no less from me.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Darin, so then I have a follow-up. So you mentioned the term consulting.
Mm-hmm.
And so how, maybe some of our listeners don't see a difference between consulting and coaching. Can you kind of help our listeners understand the nuance between those? What is the difference there in your mind?
I think that I'll just talk about my own experience in some of these conversations that I've had in the coaching process. What I experience often is a series of questions that forces me to slow down and focus and think through whatever it is that the problem of practice maybe that I brought to the table. And often the answers emerge through my own thinking, right? But I'm being guided through that thinking through the dialogue, as opposed to, last time I had a situation like that, I dealt with it this way. Or have you considered maybe trying, dot, dot, dot. It's the conversations are not about necessarily applying someone else's solutions, but helping me find those solutions by taking a little bit more time to be thoughtful.
Thank you for that. Really
Mm-hmm.
appreciate that. So coaching often focuses on self-reflection and growth. And you've mentioned, reflection a couple different times already in our short time together. So could you share an example of a moment where you feel you gained a new perspective, or maybe you considered a breakthrough?
I would say that there are breakthroughs to one degree or another in nearly every conversation that I have with my coach. But it's hard for me to point to something very specific. One of the questions that I always get asked is, what are you bringing to the meeting today? What would you like to discuss? And I found when I first started the coaching that it was difficult for me with how busy the day always was when I came to this hour of having the coaching session to even be able to slow down enough to pick what's one problem of practice that I want to work on. And so something that I've done over the last several months is whatever professional reading that I'm engaged in throughout the course of, the 2 weeks, I'll highlight several passages, and I will often bring those passages to the beginning of the coaching session. So I was reading this book, I read this passage, it resonated with me because of something I'm working through at work or something that I'm working on professionally. And we use that then as kind of a jumping off point for working through my thoughts on that topic. And I really appreciate having someone to bounce ideas off of, much like what Dana and I were just doing with the research there. I've read this. This has been proven. How does that apply to my own practice? And so a lot of those new perspectives and breakthroughs are really being able to process through what I've been reading and what I've been thinking, but have it be in a very intentional way because of the coaching process.
Darin, what would you say has surprised you the most about experiencing the coaching process?
I think that what has surprised me the most is regardless of how busy the day is, I feel more focused and centered leaving that coaching session and entering back into, the onslaught of things that we all work through.
Whirlwind.
Yep. But it truly does change the way I feel and I think approach the work coming out of that session. It forces me to slow down in a way that I haven't found a way to be able to do well without the intentional coaching.
So how does having a coach, Darin, differ from other professional development opportunities that you've had in the past?
I think the answer to that is simply that the coach is focused on me for that hour, and the session is really whatever I bring to it. And so as I've gone through this process, I have learned to be better prepared myself, which means I'm being more thoughtful more often, right? Because I want to come to that session and make the most of the time. And so, whereas a lot of other opportunities, I was just at a conference last week that had a lot of great learning, but I had to take that and then think about how that fits into the work that I do and the growth that I want to have for myself. Whereas this coaching really is very specific to what I bring to the table and want to work on.
Darin, often we hear, well, I just don't have time. I can't find time in my day to sign up for, well, not the sign up part, but to participate in, right, the leadership coaching program. What would you say to that?
Nobody has time ever for anything, right? But we all have the same 24 hours. And so an hour every 2 weeks or so, I can't convince myself that I can't carve that time out. And especially when I think about the benefit that I get from it. And my coach is extremely flexible. You know, if something comes up and I need to move a meeting or cancel a week, it's been fine. But like anything else, exercise, that type of thing, the more you just kind of commit to, I'm going to carve out this time and this is what I'm going to do with that time, and you start to see the results, it becomes pretty easy.
You know, Darin, you mentioned a couple of different results in the form of greater focus, more opportunity to surface what's already inside of you in terms of answers and thinking. What other ROIs have you identified as a result of your participation in the program?
I think that my experience as an administrator and especially in my district office role is that you actually mentioned this when you were talking about the Harvard research. There's this expectation, or at least a perceived expectation, of having all of the answers. That, you know, when someone has a problem, they come to us, we help them solve it. I have not experienced a real opportunity within the work day, within the actual work, to have a whole lot of dialogue around not a specific issue, but approaches to issues. And I think that the coaching has allowed me to reflect in a way that I otherwise wouldn't in the course of a busy day on approach rather than specific solutions to a specific problem. And to me, that it's just a shift in thinking that I try to get through professional reading and that type of thing, but having it fit within the workday and just that context, I think changes the experience.
That's really interesting. It sounds like you're getting at the how part of leadership, how you approach your leadership, and looking at how that can be different from maybe traditional ways that don't serve us as well anymore.
100%. And I think, again, it's because it's not, even though I sometimes try to push it that way, it's not, I'm not talking to a consultant. I'm not talking to someone who's telling me, here are 3 approaches you could try to solve that issue. It's more focused back on me. What do I need to do as a individual, as a professional, to grow and to think about the issues or my approach in different ways.
We're pausing for a brief commercial break. We'll be right back to continue our conversation. Stick around.
We are celebrating big this August as we host our 50th annual SAI conference. You do not want to miss out on this special event, August 6th through the 7th, 2025, with our pre-conference on August 5th. We'll look back to honor 50 years of learning, inspiration, and innovation. We have fantastic keynote speakers scheduled to be part of this anniversary conference. And we'll look ahead as we continue to elevate the work we do to support our students, staff, and families across the state of Iowa. Check out the SAI website in early 2025 for conference details, and our registration will open in the spring. We look forward to seeing you there.
SAI is excited to connect with you on Facebook. We just launched our official page. Follow us online at SAI Iowa. We love to post positive stories about your school and district leaders. Please like and share our posts and tag us on your own so we can help share more positive stories. And now, back to our conversation on leadership.
So, Darin, as you talked about your own growth. So as you continue to grow in your current role or in roles, how do you see the coaching experience influencing any of your future goals?
Oh, I think it does. Absolutely. I think sometimes it can be lonely, I think, being in leadership roles because people look to you to have the answers, but if they were easy answers, then they wouldn't need to look to us to find them, right? And so it's really important, at least to me, that I have thought partners that are invested in my ongoing growth. To me, I see a direct connection between the goals that I select at the beginning of the year for my professional improvement plan, a connection to our district goals, a connection to the building goals of the buildings that I support, and then the connection between all of those is my approach. What do I bring to those folks that are relying on my leadership, and how do I make sure that I'm bringing the best me to that work every single day? And I think that this program has supported that in a very significant way.
So what would you say to other school administrators, whether it's building level leader or central office leader, superintendent, who says, hey, I'm considering this SAI leadership coaching program?
What's the worst that could happen? I think give it a try. I really think that for me, it has been, I have pulled much more value out of it than the amount of time that it demands of me to do it. And anytime you can get more value out of the same amount of time that we all have, I think it's worth it. So I would say give it a try, and give it multiple tries, because it is a process that you kind of have to get into the flow of how these conversations work.
I think that's an interesting point to make, Darin. You talked about having had some coach training, and I know Lisa and I have had different experiences in coaching classes, coaching development. Based on those experiences that you have had, what would you say? Everyone has a different mental model of coaching. What would you say that makes this particular approach or this coaching program unique?
I think that, well, number one, this coaching program is targeted specifically at those of us who are school administrators. And I think that if nothing else, that makes it worth our while, because it's so specific to what we do. I also have really appreciated, and again, like I said at the beginning of the podcast, I got in on this very early, because I knew it was a project that SAI wanted to get started. And so I've been along as my coach, has engaged in training and feedback and all of that. And one of the things that we've talked about from time to time is, while there is a very specific method to the coaching, I don't ever feel like I'm stuck in that my coach is following the map of, after this kind of question, then you ask for this, and then if you get an answer like this, then jump to this next section over here. It is again much more focused on what I am needing, what I bring to the table, what the way that my thoughts develop, rather than trying to stick to a script of questions.
I think, isn't that true, though? I think the way that we were trained to do observations and evaluations, often we've got the ORID questions, and we do experience, if this, then this. Is it going to be directive? Is it going to be collaborative? And so some of those mental models, I think, stand in the way of having us have a real shared vision of what leadership coaching, at least through the SAI program, is all about. So I appreciate the insight from your experience. Lisa's coaching me and providing support, and I will say that I too have appreciated her questions, and that she's not following a map. And there are moments when I just want her to tell me what I should do next, and she effectively resists. She effectively resists.
Absolutely.
which isn't always easy,
No.
because we're so used to giving hey, here's what I would do, giving that advice. So yeah, it's been, I've had to re-hone some skills myself just to be more coach-like, as you talked about too, Darin. So,
And I find that very valuable because again, I see this in some ways as a train the trainer kind of situation where when my coach is open about the work that they're doing, and when I admit I'm trying to steer you towards a consultant's role here, and I appreciate that you're not going there, it helps me when I have that next coaching conversation myself to be better at it. I hope.
I think it was Dana mentioned mental models. Oftentimes I hear from school administrators that there's this mental model that you must be struggling with something to need a coach. So what would you say to a school administrator who says, well, you have to be struggling to need a coach or to be involved in the SAI leadership coaching program?
Yeah, I don't agree with that premise at all. Um, I think about some of the incredible instructional coaches that I've worked with in my career, and they were able to make every teacher better. And I never view that role as a support only for people who are struggling. I see it as a support for everybody. I am by no means perfect, and I have never met the perfect person. I believe that continuous improvement is what we are all about as educators. It's what I'm all about as a human being. And so I see the need to continually get better because there are thousands of students and hundreds of staff members that rely on me to be at my best every day. I don't see it because of a specific area of struggle. I see it as just constantly trying to be the best that I can possibly be. As you know, I was trained as a musician. I think that is a part of that. Professional musicians do master classes, do lessons, even when they're making their living performing. Athletes do the same thing. I would see no reason why we wouldn't do that as leaders.
I really love that connection to other professions and leveling up and showing up the best that we can be, knowing that there's always another tweak or another level of performance to which we can aspire. And through the one-on-one, I'm thinking back to your comments about that focused attention just on you, help you think about your next move and your next approach and how that levels up your leadership performance.
Absolutely.
So, Darin, if you could sum up the value of the SAI leadership coaching program in one sentence, what would it be?
It would be 5 sentences because it's me, but
I support that, Darin. I support that. The one sentence rule really is a tough one.
I just think that this is an incredible opportunity for leaders to improve their practice in a way that fits within the daily schedule really well, but for me has shown a whole lot of benefit. I know that I would not have had were it not for those coaching sessions.
Darin, I'm curious, when you think about the leadership progressions aligned to our 10 leadership standards, and maybe you haven't had a chance to make this connection yet, I'm wondering how the coaching experience may have impacted your leveling up in terms of those progressions.
Yeah, that's a really great point. And I don't think that I've had a conversation quite that specific to maybe moving over on those leadership skills. But I certainly have had conversations around the specific goals that I built for myself over the course of this year, and the different milestones that I set up over the course of the year to ensure that I reach those goals, which of course are connected back to those leadership standards. So again, I can't say that we've ever talked specifically about what I might do to, as you say, level up there. I'm thinking of that as kind of like a step motion. This is more of a linear progression through those milestones to get to the end goal, if that makes sense.
It does. I think about some of the language of the progressions is some of the same language that you've been using around reflective practice and processing and approaches, just that language you find as you look at the progressions, and they really are, they're kind of I don't even know if I'd call it linear. It's maybe a little curve up and then a little slide back and another curve
Yes.
up, because leadership isn't a linear progress necessarily. There are some setbacks like COVID, for example, when we all were trying to find our way. So I
Absolutely.
appreciate the reflection on that piece.
So Darin, then that leads it to you. Is there anything else that you would like to share about your coaching journey, or possibly even advice for other leaders that we haven't touched upon in any of our previous conversation?
Yeah, I would just encourage anyone who's even the slightest bit interested in listening to this or having read about it through the SAI website or some of the mailings to truly give it a couple of sessions and give it a try. Hopefully it has come through in the conversation today, the value that I've taken from it personally, and I don't think that is because I necessarily am bringing a whole lot of that to the table. I really think that I have a very skilled coach that has really helped me to think and has brought a lot of this value out for me. And so, again, the opportunity to have very targeted professional learning and development towards what you feel that you need to do in order to improve, and what really is a very short amount of time when you think about it over the course of a month. I just don't think you can beat it. And I'm so appreciative to SAI for having identified this as a potential need for those of us who are school leaders. And I really appreciate the way that the program and the process has worked for me.
Great. Well, thank you so much again, Darin, for being willing to give up more of that precious time and to speak with us today about the coaching program, the leadership program, and sharing your experience with our members. We really appreciate it.
Well, thanks again for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you for tuning into today's episode. We hope you found the discussion valuable. If you are interested in learning more about the SAI Leadership Coaching Program, you can go to the SAI website under Professional Learning. And next month, we will preview the SAI Annual Conference with our very own Associate Professional Learning Director, Al Neppel.